Hi, I'm Tina Valentine with PKRG-TV. I'm at the First Congregational Church with Pastor Mark Soriano, and we're here to talk about your community gardens. And I'd like to first ask you a little bit about the church and the background, the history of it.
The church was first founded in March of 1875, and its first home was up on the hill on Park Avenue, on Ridge, excuse me,
Ridge Road.
Ridge, where the Historical Society is now.
Mhm.
And in the 1950s, it moved its home here to this location, where we've added several buildings in that span of time.
Mhm.
And so it's been in Park Ridge for 144 years, and actually a few years before that when it was named something other than First Congregational Church. So it's actually been here since 1873.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Long
been a
time.
long, long time. Seen a lot of Park Ridge history.
Yes.
Yes.
And when did your community gardens get started?
When I got here in 2015, some three members of the church had decided to test what was a grassy area to the part of our property and built three raised beds to see how they would work.
Mhm.
It worked well enough that it caught enough interest in the members of the community, of the congregation, so that we took over what was a grassy area over there by the stream and made now it's 27 beds altogether, and put up the fence and developed it as a full community garden, which is open to people in the community, broader community, as well as members of the church.
That's terrific.
So this would be the fourth season for the full garden.
27 beds,
Yeah.
from 3 to
So
27.
yeah, that was a
That's
lot. It was a big summer.
That's quite a lot of gardening,
Yeah.
yeah. And you do donate some food to the Triborough
We
pantries?
do. So several of those beds are double-sized beds, and all of the food that's planted there, we do the planting, and everybody who's part of the garden helps with the upkeep of those beds, and whatever's harvested goes to the Triborough Food Pantry, which covers the needs of people in Wickliffe Lake, in Park Ridge, and in Montvale.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how much of the community comes out to support it? Do you know how many
Uh,
gardeners you have?
I think now I would say more than half of the beds are rented out for the season to people who are not members of the congregation.
Do you need any more gardeners?
We're always
We could certainly ask.
taking a wait list because
Okay.
sometimes we're just in the process right now of trying to get feedback from people if they're coming back again for
Hmm.
the season. The season's actually already begun for early plantings, but we're not quite sure who's coming back or not. So we're always developing a wait list in case there's beds that open up for people.
That's great. And what are your favorite crops? Do you have any?
Mine, yeah, people who know me know it's not tomatoes. It's my favorite crops are, the beans and cucumbers, and squash. I think yeah,
Hmm.
they're also the ones that do some of the best here. The beans, not so much, but the others do really well in our raised beds. So
Yes,
yeah,
and everybody loves a Jersey tomato,
they
although
do.
not
So I'm
you, but
told, and I'm
apparently.
sorry. Yeah, that I don't.
That's okay.
Yes, yes.
So how has these gardens, how have they impacted your church and the congregation?
Well, one of the things I think that's important to us about the garden is that it's really a way to bring the community together in larger parts than just the church family that's here, and
Hmm.
also to provide a service to the community. A lot of our gardeners live in apartments or have yards that aren't conducive to planting vegetables. But I think for a lot of them too, it's the experience of being able to garden in a community setting. So quite often I'll look out my office window and there'll be two or three gardeners out there, and you'll see there's some chairs out there. They'll sit and talk with each other, give each other advice, or
Hmm.
start a conversation over the gardening, which I think is also part of what's interesting to us, is to be able to provide a place and a space for people to work together and to talk about, even if it's just gardening, it's still some chance for people to get to know each other a little bit better.
Yes,
So
true, and
yeah,
support each
and
other.
support each
True,
other,
it's
right?
very
And
nice.
they're always good with sharing. I love the fact that they always share advice. Oh, when I did this happened, you should do this, or here's what you need to do to get your tomatoes look better, or whatever that is. And
Yes,
it's kind of a
that's what I
great,
love about gardening
yeah,
myself.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun. And everybody has some kind of trick or tip that they've been using for years or that has been passed down to them, uh, that I find always interesting.
There's always something more to learn. I grew up in a family where my dad gardened every
Hmm.
year, and he learned things from my uncles and his parents, and and taught me a little bit about gardening. So it was interesting then to still learn other things from other people because there's a lot now. And we particularly, it's all organic, so we don't use any
That's great.
pesticides or any non-organic composting materials and things. So that's a little bit of a challenge sometimes, but there are lots of other people who know what to do in those situations. And
Wow.
Mike, who runs the garden, is very good about knowing how to take care of
Hmm.
what to add, what to amend, how to keep the pests away without using pesticides and all of that sort of stuff. So it's become a great experiment in how to be respectful of the earth and of our use of it as well. So
True,
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about the garden or the church?
I think for the church, it is part of our overall desire to better take care of our environment. And to pay more attention to our care of the earth in general. So one of the reasons the garden was so important to us, it came out about the same time we took out a number of other plantings in the other parts of the the property and planted them with pollinator gardens for the butterflies and bird gardens and things to
Ah,
try to help. Also, we worked with the Park Ridge Green Team to replant some of the areas that were really just big bushes so that they could have more of an environmental impact. So the
mhm.
garden is part of that broader way of us looking at our own property
I
as a
see.
way to be more environmentally conscious and perhaps begin to help other people understand how we could treat the earth with respect and receive from the earth what it has to give us at the same time.
Yes, there's
Yeah,
plenty of bounty
there's
here.
plenty of bounty. Yes, yes, yes.
All right, well, thank you for discussing this with me
Thank
today,
you.
and we appreciate all you're doing for Park Ridge and this beautiful garden.
Of course, it's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
being here.
Sure. Hi, I'm here with Mike Angarola, and he is part of the First Congregational Church, the Community Gardens, and you do the coordinating of the gardens
Yes,
here?
pretty much. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
That's
great. I'd love to talk to you about some tips and tricks that you've used over the years.
well. Okay. Well, basically the garden is an organic garden. So the first thing we do is we tell people that have a bed in the garden to make sure that anything they use, any soil, any preparation, is all organic.
Organic. Hmm.
And basically, we find that having an organic garden actually produces a bigger crop, a more
Great.
abundant crop, and probably a healthier crop. So that's the big thing. Compost materials are really big. We have a couple of compost bins out in the garden. A little project that we started last fall is a process called hugelkultur.
Hmm.
And not too many people know hugelkultur, but it's a German term and it means hill culture. So what we do is we dug out a few of our beds, and in the bottom of the bed we placed organic matter that will decay naturally.
Hmm.
So we have logs, leaves, branches, stuff that's laying around that we want to get rid of, things that are in the compost piles, and we fill them into the bottom of the beds, put the soil back on top, amend it with whatever we feel we need to at the time, and it sort of it forms a mound over the top of the bed.
Hmm.
And our hope is that it will cut down on the amount of water that we use because water is a crisis.
Right.
So we're looking to save, and also we naturally feed the vegetables.
And that brings more nutrients into the
It
soil,
brings more nutrients
the
as the
composting and
things slowly decay.
hmm
And after the season ends each year, we will cover those beds with either wood chips or leaves.
hmm
That we grind up. Mostly leaves. The leaves are great. It's a great resource. I mean,
hmm
think about a tree. It produces all this energy to create these great leaves,
Right.
and then every fall they say, "You guys take them back and you use them," and we put them on the curb
Yes,
or
that's
whatever.
true.
We discard them. We don't use them. Leaves are great, so we
Hmm.
use a lot of leaves.
Okay.
Yep.
And the gardeners bring all this to the...
The gardeners do. I mean, everybody that has a bed, they pay a fee for the bed. We maintain them as best we can. We ask them to keep their area clean. We ask them not to grow anything that's invasive. We banned mint unless it's
Oh.
grown in a pot. Mint has a way of going down deep and showing up places where you don't expect it, like your neighbor's bed. And we've
But
had a
mint is so
problem.
good.
Yeah, but it's so good. But we tell people that if you want to grow mint, grow it in a
In a
pot,
pot, okay.
and make sure that the roots aren't going through the bottom of the pot and digging down into the
I've
ground.
heard bamboo is like that
mint
too.
is
Yeah.
mint has a way of spreading.
Right.
So that's there are a few restrictions on
Okay.
what you can grow, but for the most part, people are free to grow whatever crops they want.
Right.
Yeah.
And what kind of crops are your favorites here?
Well, I grow tomatoes. Every year in the fall, I throw garlic in the garden. Garlic is one of those that overwinters.
Oh, great.
And then you could harvest it sometime around the end of June or early July. So we do garlic. We do onions. We have in the community beds, which we have three. We have three community beds. They're twice the size. We get a great harvest of onions. But your peppers also seem to do real well. Last year, cucumbers were great. They were really.
It's funny how from year to year,
It
different
is.
crops
It is.
do better than
2
others.
years ago, the cucumbers, we had a problem with leafy like mildew,
Okay.
and we seem to be able to address that. We tell people again to use organic means, neem oil, which you could purchase in Home Depot or Lowe's or any garden supply place,
Right.
and you mix it with a little bit of water and maybe a little bit of detergent, and that spray that on the plants, and that keeps a lot of the insects away. So neem oil is good. Anything organic, and YouTube is a great resource. If anybody has questions about gardening or something is going wrong with their garden, there's a YouTube video on it.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
There's all kinds of tips there.
Yeah,
That's true.
absolutely,
Too many.
Absolutely.
So how do you keep, you have an organic garden, how do you keep like rabbits and
Oh
deer
yeah, our
and
number one,
those kind of
our
critters
number
away?
one pet peeve. Well, the first thing we did when we built the garden, the fence that surrounds the garden is I think 7 feet. So that's
Wow.
high enough to keep any deer out. We do not have a deer problem. Rabbits a little bit. We actually dug the fence down into the ground a little bit, so any burrowing animal would have a hard time. But a big problem is that we're right on the other side of the brook that
Yes.
runs through, and I've seen critters come up from that brook that I'm like, what is that? That type of thing. But we put up a little electric fence which gives a little jolt. It doesn't harm the animal, but it just deters them from coming in.
Yes.
But there are certain pests that you just not. A chipmunk is going to get through anything you got. Birds have no boundaries.
True.
And birds like to peck at tomato plants, especially the tomato. That time you come to the garden and say, I'm going to give it one more day, pick it. Because a bird's going to get it before you do.
Right.
And a bird will take 2 or 3 bites out of it and then take off. And then,
Uh-huh.
you just lost your prize-winning tomato.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of prizes, do you have any that are actually,
No, but that's an interesting idea. We should do that.
yeah,
Give
That's-
as an incentive to people to to come, and we always find that in the beginning of the season, it's March now, and people are starting to think about their gardens more. We've had a week now where there's no snow on the ground, so that's good, and so people are pouring through seed catalogs or starting things indoors and starting to get the bug. Within about a couple of weeks or so, we'll be able to put out maybe some lettuce plants, some leafy stuff that's able to handle colder weather.
right,
Snap
cabbage
peas,
and,
broccoli, snap peas are great this time of year, and
yeah. And it's getting a little warmer. We had a nice 70-degree day yesterday.
It's a little chillier today,
But now it's cold again.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So is March.
Everybody gets excited when it gets a little warmer, so that's good. Well, we wish you the best of luck with the garden,
Well,
and
thank you very
we know you're
much.
taking care of 27 beds. Is that
There are
correct?
actually there are 25 beds that are 8 feet by 4 foot, and those are the beds that we rent out to anybody that's interested. We have, I think, 8 or 10 people from the church that have beds, but there's probably 15, 16 people outside of the church that also
Great.
rent beds. And there's 3 large community beds. They're double sized. They're 4 foot by 16.
And all that gets donated?
All
or-
that gets donated to the food pantry.
That's
Yeah,
terrific.
Yeah, that's
Well, we appreciate you taking time today to
good.
talk
It's
to
my
us about
pleasure.
the
Thank you
community
very much for
gardens.
stopping by.
Yes, sure. Thank you.